Good morning. Hey now, PASW staff, clients, friends joining us for Wednesday's class. Thank you for tuning in. We're halfway through the week, and I don't know about you, but I'm having way too much fun. This is my face having a lot of fun here. We looked at Franz Schubert yesterday. Beautiful composer, Austrian composer, who wrote what? Lieder, right? We looked at his Lieder. He wrote a lot of other music, but we kind of looked at Lieder, which is art music, which is songs for the most part. Lied is a German song, Lieder are German songs. And we're going to continue in songwriting, but we're going to fast forward about 150 years or so. Around there. We're going to fast forward. It's amazing that, we think kind of songs came out, on the radio. That's when songwriting came out. But as we can see with Schubert and other earlier composers and just people that were writing music in caves or something, songs have been around for a really long time. We're going to talk about two people that changed songwriting history, changed music history. They wrote some great songs, some songs that were just okay. I mean, that's subjectively, but there's no denying that they were at the right time in the right place in LA when they did all this. And I'm just going to keep talking them up and tell you their names at the end of the class. No, I'm kidding. Let's just get into it. We're going to be talking about Leiber and Stoller today.
When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see. No, I won't.
So Jerry Leiber wrote the lyrics. Mike Stoller wrote the music. They're not household names, but they contributed. Without their music, we may have not had Elvis and the Drifters and a lot of other early R&B, early rock and roll artists. So we need a timeline. Otherwise, I'm just kind of speaking. Let's get, sometimes I use a map, sometimes I use a timeline. Let's bring up that timeline. I'm going to have Vanna White bring it out for you. Okay, I just put the Beatles there because everything really, when you think about it, revolves around the Beatles, even though they're later. So they're 1960, 1970, right? Okay, so Elvis is around early 50s. And Leiber and Stoller, again, perfect timing. They come out with Hound Dog. Now, they wrote it for Big Mama Thornton. They didn't write it for Elvis, but when that song comes out, that puts Elvis on the map, that puts Leiber and Stoller on the map. I'm kind of getting ahead of ourselves, but I just want to show you, and we looked at Sam Cooke and Otis Redding, so these are the other people that we've looked at. So right now we're talking about early 50s. 30s, 40s, swing music, right? 40s, bebop, and then jazz. But now early rock and roll is starting to happen, and rock and roll comes from blues. So a lot of what Leiber and Stoller were into, Stoller was into jazz. He was a classically trained piano player, and he was into jazz music, and Leiber was into more popular music. But they both liked blues music. Okay, so that's what drew them together. So they were both from the East Coast. They're both kids, Jewish kids, writing black music almost in a sense, but they didn't feel like outsiders. They dated black women. They were part of just they were into the same music, the same values, the same culture as black artists, but two Jewish kids from the East Coast. They come to LA. Stoller's a freshman at LACC, and Leiber's a senior at Fairfax High School. Okay, this is the early 50s, and they meet at this store, Nordy's record store on Fairfax. Not there anymore, if you can believe. And they loved rhythm and blues, and they decided to collaborate, and they would work 12-hour days just banging out songs on the piano and lyrics, and they were the founders kind of rhythm and blues. They were a crossover. They understood how to take vernacular, the teenage language of the time, and to also take blues, which sometimes we think of it as kind of slow. Blues is kind of slower type pace music, but when you speed that up, it becomes rock and roll. And when I say blues, maybe you've heard this, 12-bar blues. What does that mean? Bars are measures. Let's just look at Hound Dog so we're pretty clear on really how simple the blues are. Blues are 12 measures. That's it. 3 chords. We're just talking about 3 chords. We know a C chord, right? Okay, we know a C. It's an F chord. And then a G chord. That's blues. That's, for the most part, blues. Of course, there's give and take changes. But, okay, so with a song as easy as... And this class is not about Hound Dog, because I never, ever in my career wanted to ever teach a class on Hound Dog. We're just using this as an example of how that song kind of catapults it into other, things.
You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. Well, you ain't never gonna ever have you ain't no friend of mine.
So Leiber and Stoller were the architects of a new sound happening. Again, perfect timing. This new craze of early rock and roll, because when Elvis broke out, everybody was, and a lot of people say, and probably rightly so, that Elvis stole from black artists. But whether it was Elvis or black groups, when this kind of music started coming up, it was crazy. Parents were scared to death that, this was the devil. And Elvis was the devil. No, I'm kidding. But this is where you get Phil Spector becoming interested. This is before he comes up with the Wall of Sounds. And Leiber and Stoller were smart. They not only did they spend all day writing songs and lyrics for people like Elvis, but they also started producing. And that means being in charge of the production. I mean, I know that of the studio session for the most part. Do we need strings there? Yeah. Do we need timpani there? Okay, sure. There's a timpani sitting in this room. Have the drummer play just this, and that's what we hear on their very famous song for the Drifters. There Goes My Baby.
There goes my baby, moving on down the line. Wonder where she is bound.
So we take it for granted now, but they were one of the first to add strings to R&B music and other orchestral instruments before the Beatles. The Beatles were not the first, and they founded a label, and they capitalized it and made a ton of money, and but they were one of the first duo songwriters to also have control of the production in the studio. And this is the difference between, if you think of the difference between music in the 50s and the 60s, their music worked so perfectly, because if you think of the lyrics, it's not like they're profound lyrics. It's not even like it's profound chord changes. There's something about it that's so fun and singable and really great melodies that stay with you, that are simple. I mean, that's easy to say, and I'm not belittling that. That's very hard to do, to whistle something and make it simple and to say, man, I can't get that out of my head. But the lyrics, like I said, vernacular of what teenagers were talking about, they weren't personal songs. We don't really get personal songs until the 60s, until we get the Beatles and Bob Dylan, until we get, again, with the counterculture, that's when we get personal songs. There's not really personal stuff going on in the 50s. So yes, all these songs that we're listening to are songs they wrote. I mean, Stand By Me on Broadway, Jailhouse Rock, Yakety Yak. I mean, they wrote all of these songs, and they were, again, I mean, just their timing of it. My personal favorite, I think, might be Spanish Harlem.
There is a rose in Spanish Harlem, a red rose up in Spanish Harlem. It is a special one, it's never seen the sun. It only comes out when the moon is on the run and all the stars are green.
And again, listen to the orchestration of it. It's really different for a kind of quote unquote like blues, rock and roll, to have instrumentation like this. And that's because of Stan Applebaum. He was a composer, arranger, conductor. He did a lot of the orchestration on these pop songs. So, Leiber and Stoller's idea to, hey, we need strings, but then who's going to actually orchestrate and write the strings? The Beatles had George Martin. He was a producer and a classically trained person, so he could do it. But Stan Applebaum was the one that would say, okay, well, let's put strings here and violins here. And with Spanish Harlem, I just love it because it's got that Spanish guitar, those nice drum beats. It's got a marimba. You never use a marimba they were using different kinds of music. It also has the soprano saxophone. That wasn't being used hardly ever. In jazz maybe, but not even Coltrane was using it until, maybe the 60s. That song came out in 1960, so Coltrane had just started using it on My Favorite Things. But strings and a male chorus, a very interesting song. I love that song. And so Leiber and Stoller, great songwriters, wrote, and just really kind of invented early rock and roll, helped invent early rock and roll rhythm and blues music. I think I've said it all. If I have not said it all, then I'll let you guys know. Okay. Okay. Miss you, love you. That's it for today. Tomorrow's going to be very fun. Okay. Bye. La, 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 la.